History tells us Antarctica was discovered in 1820. But this map, from 1513, shows the continent's coastline with impossible precision, and it's completely free of ice. I want you to imagine a dusty storage room in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The year is 1929. Workers are reorganizing the National Archives when they stumble upon a scrap of gazelle skin parchment. You know, it looks like an ordinary portolan chart at first, the kind used by sailors to navigate the treacherous seas of the Middle Ages. But as historians brushed away the dust of centuries, they realized they were looking at something that defied the laws of time itself. This is the Piri Reis map. Created by a famous Turkish admiral and cartographer in 1513, it depicts the Atlantic Ocean with a level of detail that seems, well, impossible for the 16th century. You can see the coastlines of Africa and South America perfectly aligned. But as your eyes follow the South American coast even further down, you hit a wall of pure impossibility. Oh, there, at the bottom of the world, is a landmass that simply shouldn't be there. It's a coastline that modern seismic sounding reveals to be a near-perfect match for Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. Think about the implications of that for a second, right? Official history books tell us that Antarctica wasn't even spotted until 1820 by a Russian expedition. Yet here is a map drawn 300 years earlier, showing the continent in vivid detail. And here's the part that really keeps me up at night. The map shows the coastline as it looks entirely free of ice. How could a Turkish admiral in the 1500s know the geographical secrets of a continent hidden under a mile of solid ice? Ice that mainstream science claims has been there for millions of years? I've spent a lot of time looking into the gaps in our history, the places where the official narrative just doesn't add up. This map is one of the most glaring, out-of-place artifacts ever discovered. It forces us to ask a question that many scholars are, quite frankly, too afraid to touch. Did Piri Reis have access to ancient source maps from a forgotten advanced civilization? Or is the timeline of our planet's history much different than what we were taught in school? Today, I'm taking you deep into the heart of this mystery to uncover the truth behind the map that shouldn't exist. This is a journey into a forgotten past, and what we find might just change everything you thought you knew about the world. I want you to, think back to your earliest history or geography lessons. You were likely taught that Antarctica is a desolate, frozen wasteland, a continent locked in a grip of ice miles thick for the last 15 million years. According to the mainstream timeline, you see, no human eye even glimpsed its shores until the year 1820, when Washington British explorers first spotted the ice shelf. This is the foundation of a modern understanding of human progress. It's a clean, linear story of discovery. But I'm looking at a document that shatters that foundation. In 1513, an Ottoman admiral and master cartographer named Piri Reis finished a world map drawn on a single fragment of dried gazelle skin. When you look at the bottom edge of this parchment, you aren't seeing an icy void or a blank terra incognita. You're seeing a coastline that looks suspiciously like Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. But there's a catch that should be physically impossible. On this map, the coast isn't hidden under glaciers. It's shown as land, complete with rivers, bays, and mountain ranges. The official narrative tells us this shouldn't exist. To see Antarctica without its ice, you'd have to go back thousands of years, long before the Ottoman Empire, long before the Age of Discovery, and according to some geologists, long before any known civilization had the tools or the ships to map the globe. So, how did Piri Reis do it? The answer lies in his own notes, scribbled carefully in the margins of that gazelle skin. Pointedly, He admits that he wasn't the one who sailed to these distant southern shores. Approvingly, I've looked into his records, and he's remarkably transparent about his process, right? He claims he was a compiler, a man who pieced together his master map from 20 different source maps he found in the Imperial Library at Constantinople. Some of these sources, he claimed, dated back to the time of Alexander the Great. Others, he hinted, were even older, relics of an era lost to time. This is where the mystery deepens, and where the traditional scholars start to feel uncomfortable. If Piri Reis was merely copying maps from a library of immense antiquity, we have to ask a terrifyingly simple question. Who drew the originals? Who possessed the advanced technology to survey the entire planet while the poles were still green? I'm beginning to suspect that we aren't the first advanced civilization to walk this earth. But even as we wrap our heads around the age of these maps, there was one detail everyone missed. A detail that suggests these ancient cartographers knew something about the hidden geography of the ocean floor that we only just rediscovered. I want you to look closely, really closely, at the southern edge of this parchment. Because you see, what I see there, it shouldn't exist. It's a stretch of land we know today as Queen Maud Land in Antarctica. But on the Piri Reis map, well, it isn't a frozen white void. It's a living coastline, jagged, defined, and completely devoid of ice. For centuries, mainstream scholars just laughed this off as a cartographic error, right? They claimed Piri Reis simply ran out of room on the gazelle skin. Well, maybe he just imagined a great southern land to balance the globe. But in 1949, the laughter stopped. That year, a joint British, Swedish, Norwegian expedition headed straight for the frozen continent. They weren't just surveying the surface, They were using seismic sounding to actually see through the massive ice sheet. What they found? Well, it was a total paradigm shift. The subglacial topography, the actual shape of the land buried under a mile of solid ice, matched the contours on the Piri Reis map with a precision that, honestly, it borders on the supernatural. I'm talking about mountain ranges, plateaus, and river valleys that no human being in recorded history had ever seen.
I want you to let the weight of that sink in, just for a moment. We needed 20th century technology, sonar, satellites, to map a coastline that Piri Reis had already drawn in a library in 1513. But it gets even more unsettling. According to our current geological records, the last time that specific coastline was actually free of ice was over 6,000 years ago. We are told that 6,000 years ago, humanity was barely stepping out of the Stone Age, right? Skeptical? We're told there were no ships, no advanced mathematics, and certainly no global surveys. Yet here is the evidence, staring us right in the face. I'm forced to confront a chilling reality. This map wasn't just a drawing. It was a ghost of a world that existed before the Great Freeze. But as I looked closer at the notes scribbled in the margins of the map, I realized that the ice-free coastline was only the beginning. There was one specific detail about the way the map was projected, a mathematical signature, you see, that suggests the original creators weren't looking at the Earth from the deck of a ship, but from somewhere much higher. I found myself staring at a document that most people would assume belongs in a science fiction novel, but you see, it's sitting right there in the historical record. In 1960, Professor Charles Hapgood sent a series of urgent inquiries to the United States Air Force. Now, he wasn't looking for UFOs. No, he was looking for a sanity check on the Piri Reis map. I discovered a letter in response, dated July 6th, 1960, from the 8th Reconnaissance Technical Squadron at Westover Air Force Base. Honestly, the words on that page still give me chills. Lieutenant Colonel Harold Ohlmeyer wrote that the geographic detail shown in the lower part of the map, the coastline of Queen Maud Land, matches the seismic profile of the subglacial features perfectly. He admitted that the coastline had been mapped before it was covered by the ice cap, which is now, about a mile thick. I want you to let that sink in. The Air Force officially stated that the map is correct, and then they added a final haunting sentence. We have no idea how the data on this map can be reconciled with the supposed state of geographical knowledge in 1513. I realized then I wasn't just looking at an old piece of gazelle skin. I was looking at a crime scene where the evidence shouldn't even exist. If the Piri Reis map is accurate, our entire timeline of human civilization is a lie. But Piri Reis himself left us a clue in his journals. He didn't claim to be the original surveyor. No, he was a compiler. He admitted he used 20 different source maps to piece his world together. So, I decided to trace those sources back, following a trail of breadcrumbs through the Byzantine era and into the hands of ancient Greek mariners. The trail leads to one place, the Great Library of Alexandria. This was the ancient world's central nervous system, a repository of every scrap of knowledge gathered from the known and unknown world. History tells us the library burned, and its secrets were lost to the flames. But I'm starting to believe that isn't the whole story.
If these source maps survived the fire and ended up in the hands of an Ottoman admiral, we have to ask what other secrets the ancients possessed. If they knew the shape of a continent hidden under miles of ice, what else did they know about the true nature of our planet? I thought I had reached the end of the mystery, but as I looked at the distorted scales of the map one more time, I noticed something even more disturbing. A detail that suggests the people who drew the original source maps weren't just great sailors. They were watching the Earth from a perspective that shouldn't have been possible for thousands of years. I look at these lines, these coastlines drawn centuries before the so-called Age of Discovery, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm looking at a perspective that shouldn't exist. It isn't just the accuracy of the shorelines, it's the mathematical projection. A spherical Earth mapped onto a flat surface with a precision that requires advanced spherical trigonometry, tools that wouldn't be invented for thousands of years. It leads me to a haunting realization, one that challenges everything I thought I knew about our past. Whispering with intensity, I believe we are a species with amnesia. We have spent centuries carefully constructing a timeline of human progress, moving from stone tools to bronze, from steam to silicon. But the Piri Reis map? It's a glitch in that matrix, right? It is a physical remnant of a story we aren't supposed to remember. It suggests that before the Great Flood, before the ice locked the world in its frozen grip, there was someone else. Someone who knew the world's true shape long before we did. Someone who sailed the oceans when the Sahara was a lush paradise and Antarctica was a coastline of harbors and life. I want you to stop looking at Antarctica as just a frozen wasteland at the bottom of the world. I want you to look at it as a crime scene.
It is a continent-sized vault where the evidence of our true origins has been buried under 2 miles of solid, suffocating ice. If these maps are right, well, then our history books are fundamentally broken. We didn't just rise from the dirt in a linear path. We might be the scattered survivors of a global, advanced civilization that was wiped clean from the face of the Earth by a cataclysm we are only just beginning to understand. The Piri Reis map isn't just a piece of parchment. It's a message in a bottle from a forgotten era. It tells me that our ancestors weren't primitive wanderers. They were masters of the globe. And as the climate shifts and the ice begins to recede, the truth we've forgotten might finally be forced back into the light. But I have to ask you, if we find the ruins of a city under that ice, will we be ready for what it tells us about who we really are? What do you think is waiting for us down there, buried in the dark? Is it just rock and soil, or the remains of a world that looks more like our own than we dare to admit? Tell me your theories in the comments, and if you're ready to keep digging into the shadows of our past, make sure to subscribe. I'm still searching for the truth, and I want you there when we find it.